Hi, it's me, Egbert, Egggburt, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
Okay, I could say that there's a number of different reasons I messed up twice, but you know what? The ultimate reason was me. I screwed up. That's it. Okay, I found it, John. Can I play the segment here?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
First off, she introduces him. He walks out and gets practically no applause. And I'm just going to fast forward bad that. Okay, he sits down. There's 3 black women on the stage. This is Lady from ABC. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. Including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and, you know, and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question.
Is that classic Trump or what? I mean,
it's great. Yeah. Now, what I love was the reaction in the room right away, too. Like, they were laughing.
Well, but the sad part of this is that, you know, he gets painted with this, he's biased and stuff like that. Okay, they call him an anti-Semite. Okay, his son-in-law is Jewish. His kids, his grandkids are Jewish. His daughter converted from whatever religion she was to Judaism. Okay, he's got, you know, close blood relatives. His daughter and his grandkids are Jewish. Okay, I don't, you know, and once again, a businessman in New York City. How many Jewish people do you think he worked with through the years? Okay?
A whole lot, yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't get it. And if you go back in history, the sad part of this is if you pull up any of the polls will tell you right now, especially among black men are abandoning the Democratic Party because they're not wild about what's happened, and partly because what's sort of interesting about this is for a long time, and John, you're the political expert. Tell me if I'm wrong or not on this. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
It used to be that the Republicans were like the corporate people, and they used to call them the country club Republicans, and you drank tea with your little finger in the air and that kind of stuff. And the Democrats were like, you know, the Teamsters and the down and dirty. They were the carpenters, and they were the working folks. Okay, look what's happened where there's like a juxtaposition. Would that be the correct term?
That's a divergence and a juxtaposition.
Right, because of the fact that now the elite are Democrats. They're the what they call the coastal elites. Look at, San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego and on the other coast, and they dominate the entertainment industry. They dominate the news industry. Once again, what was the guy named Yuri Ulander or whatever his name was, the NPR guy that came out and said,
it was actually Yuri Zoolander.
Yuri Zoolander, who came out and said, hey, guess what? In the newsroom here at NPR, I can count on my hand with no fingers open how many people voted for Donald Trump in the 20.
But to your point, Brad, it's you could describe them as overeducated. People that have multiple, advanced degrees up on their wall.
But once again, that the Democrats have become the elite. Am I correct in that or not?
Of course, yeah. And so let's look at not just conjecture, but also stats. A gentleman named Jeff Rowe, who's a top political consultant nationally, who's from Missouri, pointed out, and I'll get the exact details of the stat wrong, but since 2016, the Donald Trump-led Republican Party, people who self-identify as Republicans, the average salary has decreased by $40,000, Brad. In other words, people who identified as Republicans 10 years ago even had a much higher salary than on average than people who identify as Republicans now. What that speaks to is the Democrats are a largely elite and overeducated group, and Republicans are more likely to be working people than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago.
And once again, that's a switch. It's like, okay, you people on the left, move over to the right. You people on the right, move over to the left. It's sort of...
Yeah, and so if I were a Democrat, Brad, I would point out the fact that Democrats are still going to vote for Kamala Harris. They're still going to, quote, come home to the Democratic Party. But you do have an increasing number of black men, and every major poll shows this, Brad, of black men who are less trusting of Democratic Party. Will black men vote for a black woman at the same percentage as they voted for a black man? And I think that answer is no. I think if they see a black woman who's cackling and a black woman who's a real boss girl, even though she's half Indian, but when she does the boss girl shtick, and you're a black man and you go into the ballot box, does she remind you of every ex-girlfriend you had or every wine aunt you ever had or not?
Wine aunt?
Yeah, a wine aunt.
What is a wine aunt?
A childless woman who exists on Franzia and antidepressants.
Oh, I thought you meant WHINE. You're talking
No, WINE, yeah.
What's the definition again?
I would call it a childless woman who subsists on boxed wine and antidepressants.
So it's not it's WIN and it's aunt, not as in like AUNT, but it's ANT.
Yeah, aunt, or as you would say, as we would say, Brad, in the black community, auntie.
Auntie, okay.
Would you vote for a cackling wine auntie if you're a black woman, or would you vote for the guy who is a convicted felon and who says what he thinks?
Okay.
I mean, I think a percentage of black men would vote for the latter.
There was another point where you can hear the audience become not happy, where he says Kamala. And here's the interesting thing. Lately, I'm hearing it more both ways. And tell me, is it Kamala? Is that the proper pronunciation she likes? Is it Kamala?
It's actually I texted Willie Brown and he said it's Kamala. That's just what Willie said. I don't know if it was a pet name or what.
John, do you know if we had 100,000 listeners at this very moment, which we don't, but if we did, there would be probably 5 of them that would pick up on what you just said. That is once again.
And you know what? We speak to the 5 out of 100,000.
That is way inside.
It's a deep cut. If this were an album, Brad, when you were spinning records, you would call that one a deep cut. You really got to know the album to get that one.
Well, we never played deep cut because I was a top 40 guy. That would have been KC and the other ones. Hey, here's a deep cut for you on KC 95. See, I mentioned all the call letters. Okay. Well, see, not to beat this thing to death, but once again, okay. I mean, if I invited Donald Trump to an event and he showed up, I would be doing the Snoopy dance. If I was an event planner and I invited, once again, the former president of the United States and a guy who is currently running to be the president of the United States again, and he showed up at my event, I would be like, oh my God, sir, thank you so much. Instead, he gets berated. I just don't.
Well, I don't know, but let me push back for one thing, though. I think it's fair to invite him to come and ask him really hard questions and not attempt to ingratiate yourself or not kiss his behind or whatever. But as she pointed out, apparently they were late. I know it's crazy to think that black people would be late anywhere. Anybody who knows what CPT stands for. But there's a difference between being unprofessional and asking really hard questions. I don't think they should ask him to come there and sit on stage for an hour and ask him softballs. I think they should just treat him professionally.
Okay. Something I want to mention, which I heard a story the other day, a guy explaining how he used to go to the Kansas City Chiefs games all the time and they used to tailgate. And he told the story that he was tailgating with a bunch of his friends, and one of his friends said, look, that guy right there, you know who that is? And he says, this is the guy who was telling the story on the radio. He says, no, I have no idea. That's Lamar Hunt. Now, do you know who Lamar Hunt is?
Yeah, NFL owner. Yeah.
Okay, the guy who owns, until he passed away, his son and his family, I think, owns it now, own the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? It was brought up that, and the guy told the rest of the story, that Lamar Hunt was the kind of guy that put on regular clothes, like sort of light street clothes. He wasn't out there like Trump in a three-piece suit or two-piece suit. And I'm not making fun of that, but it was sort of, I don't know if you remember, was that years ago when, who was the actor who was the senator? Was that Fred Thompson from Tennessee?
Yeah, Fred Thompson.
And yeah. Fred Thompson got sort of panned because he showed up at the Iowa State Fair when he was, running for president, and he had on like Gucci loafers and
yeah, that's exactly what they were. Yeah,
and he's walking around in cow poop, and the locals are going like, dude, you don't show up in goofy loafers at the Iowa State Fair. Okay, so the point being that Lamar Hunt was out there mingling with the masses, talking with people, going up to people, asking them, how things were going, and welcoming them to the game. Here's the guy who is at the time probably a multi-millionaire, maybe bordering on being a billionaire, and he's just rubbing elbows with the quote hoi polloi, whatever you want to call it. That's my guy. You know what I'm saying? That's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, but the interesting part of it was, and then this person went on, I can't remember what interview this was, they went on to say that a good friend of his that was in media interviewed him, and he said, and keep in mind, this is another credit to Lamar Hunt. Lamar Hunt is the guy who came up with the idea for, guess what? Do you know this? Answer this question?
No, I don't know. He's
the guy that essentially invented the Super Bowl. It was his idea because if you remember, originally, he brought the team from Texas, and they were in the AFC, and that was when the AFC was not another conference, it was another league. You had the National Football League.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had the American Football League, and essentially he brought the team in, and he's got all this history. And when he was asked what his most important accomplishment was in sports, you know what he said?
I don't.
Soccer. He started.
Why?
What's that?
Why is that?
That's what he said. He said, now here's the interesting thing. And the reporter was somewhat dumbfounded by that because he started the initial league, I can't remember what it was called, because Kansas City has had a soccer team for a long time. To us it's new. To Kansas City it's been a long time. It originally was called something besides MLS. He started that league and then it ultimately morphed into the MLS. And
that's amazing.
Here was his response. His response was, soccer is the only sport where anybody can play. Anybody on the street corner, if you go to a school, any kid can get out there and play soccer. And you don't need any special equipment. You don't really need to be the world's best athlete to play soccer. Anybody can play soccer. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's a real interesting point because it is true. I mean, there are a lot of people that have a terrible time at a lot of sports. I mean, unless you're a big person, you're not going to be able to play football unless you're playing flag or something like that.
Same with basketball.
Same with basketball. If you're a short person, chances are you're not going to excel at basketball. And there's so many things but yet anybody can go out there, and you may not be very good at it, but anybody can run around the field.
But anybody can play.
Right.
And that was, as you remember, Brad, from the mid-'90s, one of the lasting legacies of Mayor Freeman Bosley was he solved St. Louis City's crime problem with midnight soccer. And he went to the corner of Grand and Dozier at the site of the former Sportsman's Park at Matthews Dickey and Herbert Hoover. And then he went up north to Surrey Lane and the Northside Youth Association, NYA. And he made sure that he worked with the county in building soccer fields. And that's why today in 2024, we don't have any crime, is because we have both soccer fields and they're starting to put up a few basketball hoops too, Brad. I don't think urbanites will take the basketball, though. I think soccer's more their speed. Usually soccer or equestrian sports are a little bit more for the urban crowd. But basketball might catch on too. The point is Freeman Bosley solved St. Louis City's crime problem with a little bit of funding for midnight soccer, Brad.
I thought he brought in Polo. Wasn't that Polo he brought in?
No, he did bring in a lot of Polo, but they stole those shirts from the outlet malls in Chesterfield and brought all the Polo back to the city. And you sell it to your auntie Clarice. She's kind of the fence, and then she could take it to the swap meet and get some cash for it. So yeah, he did help bring Polo in technically, but he also brought in Tommy Hilfiger and stolen sunglasses from Sunglass Hut too, Brad. I read the crime reports. I know what they're bringing into the city. And the good thing is they use the stolen Tommy Hilfiger for nautical wear. They like to go sailing a lot.
You can listen to 97.1. You listen to Tracy Station. You can listen to the refugee station, Jeff Allen, the 90 whatever what frequency they're on, 94.1 whatever. You will never hear commentary like this on any of those stations. Never in your wildest dreams will you hear commentary like you've just heard from. What's your name again? John Combest? Write that down.
No, my name is Phil Christofanelli, and I represent the Gladius PAC, and I'm spending about $400,000, but not a single dime to Brad Hildebrand. Yes. Not a single dime to Brad Hildebrand to screw him.
Yeah, well, you know what? John essentially says, "Suck it up, Buttercup," right? Right?
No. I remember. I went back and re-listened to that segment, Brad, and you know what? When you're right, and you're right.
I was right about what?
About the fact that there are some people who really should be advertising on your pop station, if only because, Brad, you know who they play? You play Chaperone.
I think we played one of her songs back. I don't think I have the current one up. I'll have to check that. And not that I'm against it. It's just to the point where we have certain standards for the music. And one of the things is, like, for example, I play on Westplex. I don't think I play any Olivia Rodrigo because of the fact that all her stuff is so slow and plodding. It's like the argument I used to have with Shelley all the time. She wanted me to play My Immortal by Evanescence.
Oh, yeah. I love that argument you would have with her.
And once
you
again,
hate that song.
Well, no, I like that song. It's got a great video, but when I put Westplex 107 on the air, I put it on the air with the idea being of appealing to women in St. Charles County, and the idea being an up-tempo, positive song station where you're not going to hear ballads, you're not going to hear Kenny Rogers and Barbara Streisand, or Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond. You don't bring me flowers. We're not playing that kind of stuff. We're playing up-tempo, positive music to get you in a positive mood. And let's be honest, most of the stuff that Olivia Rodrigo does, and even to the point where, who's the other one that drives me nuts? And
Sabrina Carpenter.
No. She's got the breathy voice, and Billie.
Elaine Shaw.
No.
I love all of her stuff.
No, Billie Eilish. That's another one. It's like.
Now, Brad, I've heard Billie. I could have sworn I've heard Billie Eilish on 107.1.
Well, but it was probably an up-tempo song. I mean, one of two that she has. Because everything else is like, she's like, and it's like this angst. I'm tired of angst songs. I really am. I like stuff like Matter of fact, I saw something the other day, which is sort of funny. It said, if you remember, hey, Mickey, you know that song I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, that's by, who sang that?
Well, she's now 80 years old. So
Toni somebody.
Toni,
Not
yeah.
Toni Atlas.
Yeah,
Toni Barrone.
Toni Barrone. Okay, whatever. She's now 80. Okay, so think about that for a while. Okay, John, we are way over. John's got to get
way over time, and I did it, but that's okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?